Okay, so welcome. My name's Sue. I'm the one that annoys you from the front with messages about timekeeping in rooms, but we'll jump out of that role, hopefully, although we will finish on time. And kind of just settle into what I hope will be a participatory session where you will share and chat with us. And I'm in kind of five minds, not just two, five minds about, well, what could I share with you that would be helpful? And it would be helpful for me too, because it's really all about me, sometimes. And it's that thing about going between giving a really specific story, sometimes, I mean, which I love myself to listen to, and then taking it out sort of broader, deeper, but still light, you know, about the bigger way that we can talk about it. So I'm going to try both. I feel sometimes it's a bit of a liberty to talk about a member of your family. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I have.
They're not here, are they?
No, but there is a big witness, given our husbands here. But we're open and free about our lives. Now I was going to talk about how extraordinarily different relationships show up for me in my life now compared to how I used to think about them and experience them and create them when I had no idea that I had any choice. I had no idea that I had anything inside me. I mean, that used to sound like complete rubbish when people said, you have everything you need inside you already. And I thought, well, you're wrong, because I don't. And that might be true for you, but I don't. So that's not helpful. That made me feel a lot worse. So when my daughter had a psychotic breakdown, she was 17, it was extremely serious. And I went into freefall. And if this was about well-being, this would be the same story. But I lost my well-being overnight, completely and utterly. And it was as if, you know, you had these dragons, or people describe them as monsters of thought. Well, this confirmed some of the really big ones for me, that not only was I not very good at love, even though I thought, put every ounce of my being into being a parent. You know, I was sleep deprived for 2 years because I would not let this child, well, any of my children in the end, need me, and I wouldn't be there. So I became, I think, almost I was hallucinating in the end. Anyway, so right from the beginning, I had real concerns about how good I was at being a parent, how good I was at love, this thing called love. And when something like that happens, the first image was, well, I thought I'd dropped one of my children. It was all about me and that I was responsible. I had no way of getting into this picture that we were thrust into, all of us, our whole family, of psychiatric hospital. I was absolutely terrified, and I tried to cope for 6 months with somebody who was really, really on the edge. She was hearing voices, which she said she'd heard for before this anyway, and the thing just cracked open. And I was terrified of her going into the system, so I resisted that, and I went to see a doctor who said to me, well, if you can avoid it, do so. And I thought, oh, there's a doctor, he's telling me it's possible. He said, just take her home. Well, we took her home, and it was an absolute nightmare. But now I can see what might have helped me had disappeared. I had no confidence left. I just was filled with fear. I didn't know what was going on. I'd never come across these symptoms before. I'd never experienced somebody speaking, well, almost as fast as me. Slow down. She just went into this manic phase, I suppose. And I was heartbroken, and I was guilty. I felt wretched. And we had 3 other children to try to be normal with. So it became really, really awkward from almost every respect. And so there I am in a world that I have no resources to cope with, because I thought I should have known how to deal with it. Anyway, so what kind of relationship could I have with this daughter who appeared to me to be broken? and that I had not stopped this happening. And I think that I also became quite ill, if you like. I don't know what word to use. I lost all sense of myself. They were wonderful. I was teaching at the time, and one day the head said to me, you know, you need to go home and you need to look after your family, and we will be fine, and we want you to be okay too. And he was so kind, and he said, don't bother ringing in every day to say you're not coming in. He said, tell me when you're feeling a bit better. And that act of kindness meant so much, because it was simple and I understood the message. That's about all I could do, is understand simple messages. So I went home and I tried to do this. So now I was there every day watching her, almost 24 hours a day. And there's a lot, you know, it went on a long time. So if I look at the relationship then, you know, if I look, sort of bring it forward in time, what I hadn't realised was I had a fixed view of her, and therefore the relationship I could have with her was based on that. And also the fixed view I had of myself. So we got a lot of minus points coming together here. She was in this terrible state, and I was a terrible mother and a terrible person. So there was not a lot of fertile ground for health and innate well-being to bubble up. Nevertheless, I had then the opportunity to learn about the principles, and that was through Dr. Roger Mills coming to our local town. Well, I went to London first and jumped straight on. And the very first time I heard him, I knew there was something else. I kind of locked on to, there was hope. There was hope. And it also recognised, I recognised within me that my resistance to the system was, I thought that, well, she can get better. Everyone could get better. But everything was proving me wrong at that point. And then she met with Dr. Roger Mills, even in the state that she was in, and he said, there's so much health in your daughter. And there was another gift of just such great proportion. So how do we then proceed? Well, I've been the one that's had to learn. I've been the one, this is my take on it, I've been the one to have to learn to take my hands off the controls, because I was trying so hard to fix this situation, to fix me and to fix her. It was not pleasant. I know it wasn't pleasant for her, because she lost me completely. She lost me as the mum who just needed to love her. She got instead someone that had the book, the video, the tape. Just watch this. Do you fancy just watching this? This will fix you. So that went on for a while, and then I think she got a bit wiser to me, because she's an extremely kind, very tolerant, beautiful human being who just didn't fight back. She would just take it all from me. And then one day she said, can you stop trying to make me better? I'll do it myself in my own time. And it was such a breath of fresh air to me to hear her speak from a place of knowing herself, and her own wisdom was coming through. And I just wanted to apologise to her, and I've done this on a few occasions since. I'm really, really sorry that I came at you with a sort of a hammer and chisel. Let's make a new model kind of thing. And she saw, way before I did, my health inside me. She knew, she knows that I love her. She knew I was doing my best. And she was also so gracious about it. And I misread it, because I had a fixed idea of what a mother-daughter relationship looked like. The daughter's bonny and bright and it's succeeding in everything, and the mother is loving. She's normally a bit rounder than me because she's all soft, and you know, I wasn't the right shape for start off. Bony shoulders to cry on. They're not good, are they? So I guess what I get from this now is that she has brought me home, if you like, and I didn't see it coming. It's not been overnight. It's not a dramatic end of the road. I've got loads of learning to do. But what I'm seeing about that relationship was, it was my creation. And I didn't know that. And the more that I've learnt about how that works, the more that I've been able to relax, and I've been able to trust that my opinion of myself isn't worth a brass farthing. And you're old enough to recognise that phrase. Not worth a brass farthing, because that can change in an instant, and it changes with you or without you, kind of thing. And I've gained a preference for. Well, I've lost interest in my own opinions, and it's serving me really well. And then when an opinion comes along about something that could be helpful, I kind of know the difference now. So we've all relaxed over the, I would say, what would you say, Nick, five years, would we say we've enjoyed a new...
Oh, hell yeah. But she was absolutely spot on. What I relate in that situation, you seem to have processed it better than me.
Me?
I think so.
Well,
well, what I mean is I haven't quite let go as well as what you've displayed here. But what touched me was the guilt and the heartbreak. But definitely the principles transformed the situation.
She made me laugh once, not that long ago, maybe 18 months. She just said to me, and she gave me a definition of the principles. And she's the one that said, don't give me any books, no, don't watch any films. And then she said, so if the principles are really just about thinking and blah, blah. I was thinking, yes. And I was good. I just said, don't say anything to myself, just listen. Because that's the other thing, isn't it? When I really see her through clean eyes, I see somebody different to the daughter that I see through cloudy lenses that have my worry and my anxiety and my fear for the future for her. And I would like to publicly, if you like, thank Nick, who is Heidi's partner. They've been together since she was 16, 15, 16.
Yeah, we've been together 18 months.
Yeah. So I've learnt enormously from you too, Nick, because of your steadfast, loving care, your devotion, your resilience. It's wonderful. I can't thank you enough, because I think as a family we're holding each other in place, in a loving place.
Yeah, I didn't take responsibility. I did beat myself up for a long time.
Yeah. So,
you know how Sue was saying that I guess a good mother had to have round shoulders. And she has bony shoulders. We all kind of have ideas, right, we all kind of have ideas about what's going to happen when we understand how we function better. And one of my ideas about the kind of relationships and the kind of person that I would be, what kind of relationships that I would have when I understood the principles better, was that I was always going to be kind, always going to be lovely, I was not going to be judgmental, I would not get angry, I would be able to have wonderful relationships with everyone. Because, right, we are the principles in action, and it was just my thinking. That's kind of what I thought. Well, that's not the case, right? I noticed that I get judgmental, I get angry, I don't like people sometimes, etc., etc. And for a while, I don't know if it's over, but for a while, it was a problem with me that I had those experiences. You know, it's almost like my brother, for example. My brother and I, at one point, we were very close, and at the moment, we just don't talk a lot. I don't know if we're close or not. We just don't talk a lot. And I wish we would. But then I would get angry with him because he didn't call me back. He wouldn't WhatsApp me back, or text me back, or email me back. And then I thought, this is just your thinking. You should be much more understanding. You should blah, blah, blah. Which just really compounds the whole thing so much, right? And it's interesting, this year, I've had particularly one relationship that I really treasured. And it's gone south a little bit for me. And I've had a lot to do with it, I have to say. I've had a lot to do with it. And I sort of threw a tantrum in my own head, and then I beat up myself for it. And then I would get little glimpses of, this is temporary. This is temporary. And had a lot of moments of connection with this one person. So I just wanted to talk about our journey in life as we learn about the principles in our relationships, and how sometimes we have this idea that just because we know the principles, all our relationships are going to be perfect, And I just want to tell you that for me, it's been par for the course. Do you know what that means? Okay. Par for the course. And that's okay. That it's okay that we continue to get stuck at times, and that we continue to get judgmental at times, and that we continue to be human beings at times, even if we know the principles. It makes it more gentle, I think, right? It snapped me a little bit better, and it's just kind of extended me grace for myself, In this particular relationship that I told you that, it's just very precious for me, but it's just not happening the way that I want it to. One of the things that I heard is step back. Just step back. Because right now you have no idea what to do. And as I was trying to get closer, it would just get really sticky. Like when you're trying to fix something, and the closer you get, the more sticky it gets. And you're trying to fix something, but it just gets worse as you're trying to fix it. And so I think this idea of stepping back, which came from wisdom, felt really right on. It felt like, okay, this is helpful. I have no idea what's going to happen. It saddens me deeply that it's not happening the way that I wanted to. Because I wish we had the kind of relationship that we had last year. But it's not happening right now. It's just not. So I wanted to say that because I think so many of us feel this guilt that you were talking about when we experience struggle in our relationships and we know the principles, right? Because we should never experience upset. We should never experience disconnect. And I have to say, it's been very humbling. Just, I have no idea what to do. Honestly, I just don't. I don't feel what I think I should. I just don't. I just don't. I think sometimes that's a problem with me. The fact that I'm not feeling this loving feelings towards this person, you know? And then I just hear, you know, it's kind of, it reminds me of like a turtle. It's like, I need to go in right now inside of me because right now, given what's happening, it's a good place for me to be. Just kind of, you know, kind of like really taking care of myself. And it's really funny because, you know, I kind of have a history of getting connected with people, and I love people, and so this is not fitting into the norm, right? Which can be quite distressful, you know, like, ooh, Jesus, right? And the only thing that I'm hearing right now is just go in, retrieve. Just stay still. Don't try to fix it right now. Just calm down. I think I heard somebody, I don't know where I heard this a while back, but somebody said, well, I can love that person even from afar. Like I can still love them, right? Even if we're just not super connected. So that's nice. But sometimes I don't even feel that. Sometimes I feel like, you know, I just don't even want to love you right now. I really don't care. So, you know, just this. Some people say, you know, like everything happens for a reason. I just don't know that that's true, but this is what's happening right now. This is just what's happening right now. So understanding the principles, how has that been helpful to me in this moment, you know? It surprised me how hard I've come down on myself. It surprised me how much I struggle with I guess it's the mold that I had about the kind of relationships that I had with people is breaking, right? Because it was like loving and kind, and I can tell you right now, it's like not loving and kind right now. That surprised me a lot. And I guess it's showing me that I had a misunderstanding, that I thought my well-being depended on the quality of relationships that I had with people. Right? Because in the past I was like really, this is unusual for me. I have not gone through this before. So there was this misunderstanding about, oh, you thought that because you have generally this kind of relationships with people, that gave you value. It meant something about you. Right? And right now that's not true. so, in spite of that, am I okay? You know, in spite of the fact that I'm not feeling very loving, in spite of the fact that sometimes I'm tantruming a lot. I can feel it inside my own head, you know. In spite of the blame, right? Like, well, you did this, you did this, you did this, right? If you were doing differently, then I would be okay. And so what I'm learning right now is that the love that we feel really has nothing to do even with the quality of relationships that we have, right? Like, it's very humbling. It's very humbling. I think at the beginning of the year, I was really rattled around it. And I was trying to manipulate, you know, I was kind of like, okay, give me the control, let me do this, let me do that. And I'm telling you, it was just getting really, really messy. And I'm still saddened, but I feel more still inside of myself. I don't know what's going to happen. That makes me a little nervous at times. Because there's also a lot of attention, and like people are asking me, you know, like, well, how is this coming along? And I'm like, oh shoot, you know, horribly, really horribly. So I just wanted to tell you that. I just wanted to tell you that that I think we learn, and we learn more, and we learn more, you know. And I love the idea of seeing that we are not broken no matter what. That's true for our family members, you know, for our loved ones. I think I'm seeing that in a new way, that even if I'm not experiencing, you know, all these beautiful feelings, even when that's true, there is a place in me that's okay, and that I don't have to, that there's no shoulds in relationships, right? And that sometimes retrieving is just kind of like what would show up as the wisest. So I think I'm learning something about how I'm learning something about the breadth of possibilities in relationship. And I'm learning that just in an instant, I can get up in my ego. I mean, just like in an instant, right? Like I can get caught in my ego like in no time at all. Really, just like out of nowhere, right? And I'm like, I can't believe I'm thinking this. And then there's sometimes like, you know, you shouldn't feel this. That's why I wanted to talk to you about this. Because this other little, funny little thought that we come up with, limits us from seeing just the depth and the range of possibilities. Because we all think, right? Well, we should have rounded shoulders. And that could be, well, we should have, you know, we should always be kind. We should always be graceful. I mean, that just sort of pops into my head. And sometimes we have bony shoulders.
Who said they weren't?
And it's okay. It's okay.
Well, I was thinking how curious it is that it takes a long time to condition children out of their natural flow of fun and loving connection and simplicity. And you can meet a child who doesn't speak a word of the same language as we used to do. My sister and I played with them for hours and hours on the beach or in a park. And there was no thinking about that. It was just the most natural thing in the world. And then I think as life goes on, there are some rules brought into it, and circumstances seem to influence, and I guess we go from being strangers in a land where there are all these things that we should and shouldn't do to becoming quite adept at managing all these things that we shouldn't do. So it seems to me that in my experience, recognizing that that is so, there's been a deconditioning, but I haven't done the deconditioning. There is something that I think everybody in my life, every relationship I've ever had, whether it lasted for 5 minutes or it's been my lifetime, there has always been something there to help and to show me in that connection. There is something so deep that has never ever been affected or touched or diminished within me, and that once all the frameworks that were put in place start to show up, instead of a scaffolding, it's like, these cars, we didn't have any toys when we were kids, we used to spend playing cards building these, and that you look at it and think, wow, that's amazing, but a breath of air and they're gone, and that's all this is, isn't it? That's all we're really talking about, is something that can be breathed on and can be disappeared. And that lightness and that possibility, it's a bit like being a child, going back to being a child, so it's a reverse. Stick yourself in reverse gear and you will not go wrong. I've spent too long trying to go forward in the right direction, driving the right way. And another thing I was thinking about relationships, we don't stay the same. We're not static. We're not fixed in space and time. I change my mind about myself and then laugh or cry or whatever. But so my relationships have to kind of, I know that I'm making them up as I go along, and they will ebb and flow. And I used to have a thing about keeping hold of them, because I moved around a lot as a child, and you know how your best friend is going to be forever when you're 7, and then, well, you may not know, when you go home and your parents say, we're moving again. And that's quite, at first, quite tricky to deal with, because you think, well, I've got no friends, I've got to go to a new place. And my skill became, I can leave anywhere at any time and be fine. But it was because I'd closed off. I didn't want to feel that sadness. I thought that was a skill I had gained. But what it did, it was shut down a little part of me, a little bit part of me that can feel so deeply, and it's fine to feel so deeply. It's fine to be a bit heartbroken because you can't see a person anymore. But it's not the end of the story. And that's the way I feel relationships are. They're part of this never-ending story that we are living, and that is lived. Connection's really, it is a major theme, I guess, of my life. And this is why, for me, this is so wonderful, because it's the most natural thing in the world, in my opinion, to just gather together like this and have a nice time and enjoy one another with no agendas. And as far as possible, to show up as close to the simplest version of yourself that it's possible to glimpse in a moment. And I have to say, I have reflected a little bit on whether I should be a bit more formal, a little bit more grown up about all this. Because it really isn't a playground for children, is it? And then I think, oh, so why would I try and do that?
Just to add, I think the most precious thing I got from it is, as you said, the never-ending story. And you can press pause on your relationships when you've got caught up in the drama. But let me just get to my point first. The immeasurable thing for me is that when I wake up in the morning, and it's been one of those nights, instant.
Is this when you're kept awake?
Yeah. So, I create a story in my head that I must get X amount of sleep or I can't function. That's her fault for me thinking that. But the great thing is, no, it doesn't have to be like that, because that's just my thinking. And I can press pause on this relationship and not have a new experience the longer I hold on to that. And it's just it's like a reset. It's just within minutes before I've left the door, I'm going to write her a little love note. Because what happened last night doesn't exist anymore. And so it's just, I think, forgiveness, seeking a new experience within the relationship. That's just been wonderful. Because each day is a new day. So there's no piling up of big, I'll be a break if this goes on. That's priceless.
Does anybody else have a comment or?
You were saying about not losing, because you don't lose the connection, but like moving around a lot. And I came here on like not really out of choice, and I had to leave a lot of things that I loved, but I also did want to come here. I live in this area. And as much as I keep in touch with friends and I still love them, we're still connected, I'm like heartbroken because I miss them. And I lived with my best friend for 3 years, and we had a cat together, and we were like a couple, and now it's gone, and I know that I wouldn't ever have that again. And I know the connection's still there, but I miss it, and I don't know. I suppose it's just a new chapter and new connections that I've made here, but I always get pulled back by my love for people, because I miss them, and I don't even want they can come and visit and I can go and visit, but it's not the same. Like it'll never be. I want the kind of the way that it was when it was just the little moments that you had when you lived together, or that you went out, or you just went, oh, let's do this, let's do that. And it's not the same when it's like a planned visit, and then you realise that so much has changed as well. We've all changed, and I suppose you get stuck in wanting what was instead of what could be.
It's so subtle. So subtle. Let me see, be a little patient with me, but I mean, there are some people that I miss and I like, okay? But like when you're with somebody and you're experiencing this great time, it's just great, just a great time. It could be love, it could be just joy, whatever, right? In those moments, like think of somebody that you just have loved to spend time with, and you just had a great moment, right? That joy and that love is the love, it's the flavor of our own essence. And that's subtle and tricky. Because like, man, I love their laughter, or I love how we went to have coffee and we went shopping together, or I love drinking tea with them, right? And I think I get confused. I get confused in thinking that, they're lovely people, okay? That's true. But that joy and that grandness, or in an ordinary way, that's the feeling of our own essence. It's the sound of our soul. That's you, feeling you. And that's always going to stay with you. I remember when I divorced my first husband, I really thought I was going to die. I was like, oh my God, you know. Because we had a lot of fun together, and we did. It was a lot of fun. And you know, he's a great human being. He's a great human being, right? It shocked me when I love my current husband the way that I do. It shocked me. It really did. Because I thought, how could that be possible? Right? Love is not finite. It's not like we only get 10 grams of love, right? Or 1 pound of joy, right? Or, you know, 2 meters of connection. It's endless. I mean, it's our essence in motion.
Because it's so easy to miss something that is actually essentially an idea, and an idea is a thought. So the idea of something not being possible is an idea. And I've had so many of those. Well, I'm so clever. How many have you had?
A lot.
So really, and not realizing that I really didn't know when I was saying things like, well, I know that's going to be this way, or I know it's going to be that way. I remember feeling, when I was expecting my second child, feeling really concerned about, well, how can I possibly have any love left after the love I have for my first child? And it fooled me. It was a really strange feeling of, I mean, it's all here now. How can I possibly love another child? And somebody said, well, you don't have to worry about it because they'll bring it with them. And it's not even necessarily that is true, but in that moment, it took the pressure off. And I think what I understand about that now, it's not so literal, but it's what you're saying. I think that love is expansive. And of course, then I had the experience of absolutely falling in love with my second child. So now I've got this, you know, even greater sense and feeling of love. And then I got pregnant again. I mean, you know, that was an idea. That's how ideas come into form. So I would have said, you know, if you'd asked me in that concern period, I just don't know how it's possible. And then I saw how it was possible, so life taught me. And that's how I feel my experience around relationships has been, is that there is no credit due whatsoever to me becoming nicer, kinder, more patient, a bit more fun. That was missing for a long while. It feels like, again, the covers just slipped off, and there it was, bingo. But there's no credit. I don't feel like I've done that. It's something within me that has been, the spark, and the understanding of the principles. It just seems to fan that gently, and the flame grows, and then it is you. It is who you are, and the glimpse of who you are is healing. And it's, you say the essence, which is, I haven't sort of referred to it, but I like that. The essence of who we are. That was always there. And I'm just so grateful that in those days when I was fumbling around amidst the rule book of relationships, people hung on in with me. That's something to be grateful for, because I was a bit of a bism at times. I don't even know what that means, but it's complimentary. And I think my husband now is an absolutely extraordinary human being. But he didn't always look extraordinary. Sometimes I really disliked him. And I remember one evening, this was a powerful experience for me. One evening, we were having a discussion about something, and I already had the discussion sewn up in my head. I was right and he was wrong. It wasn't even a trivial thing, I don't think. But I had this one idea, and because he opposed that idea, he physically changed in front of me.
No.
Seriously,
No,
it's just the strangest thing. He looked really mean. He looked mean-spirited. He looked mean-minded. He looked selfish. He looked physically different. I almost shrank him down to this nasty piece of work. And yet, the great thing was, I thought, wow, I can do that. Because I knew it wasn't true. Although I could see it looked true. I thought, that's powerful. That's what we're talking about. When we create ourselves and we create one another. I just recreated him in a microsecond to be the devil incarnate. Oh, this is on film.
Don't worry.
One warm and hearty meal for Rudy, and I'm safe.
You know people in the editing
We
department.
know. And then the miraculous thing was, he transformed.
Into a beautiful
My prince came. There's never been a recurrence of that at
I know he's handsome. And you were wrong the whole time.
The transformation is he now sees that I was right.
That's funny.
Oh dear. Now I'm nervous.
There was one more thing I wanted to share. I wanted to talk a little bit about listening. When we listen to people, you know, for those of us that have chosen to share the principles, we can have a conversation with our loved ones, and then we forget that we're just in relationship, and we forget that we're not always facilitators all the time, right? And this happens sometimes in our relationships of our loved ones. And so as they're talking, we're waiting for a teachable moment. Well, we're having coffee or, you know, making love or something. And we stop listening because we have our teachable moment now. So it's like we don't need to listen anymore. And we launch forward to our teaching, right? To like, well, you know, it's just your thinking. Do you see how this is just an idea? And they're just trying to have life with us, you know, just like, we're just having a cup of coffee for crying out loud. Right? So I was having a conversation with someone and they were saying, you know, how can we teach them not to suffer? How can we teach them this? Or how can we teach them that, right? And I remember a time where I was having a conversation and I would get to a certain point and then I saw a teachable moment. Mind you, it was just like an ordinary day. Okay, this was not in a class, this was with a loved one. And so then it's like, well, this is my moment to teach them so they don't suffer as much. But they're not asking you for that, they're just asking you to hang out with them, you know. So I was like, okay. So I would listen, another year goes by, it's like, this is this teachable moment. Clearly this person, if this person that I love so much saw this, their life would be so much better, and I'm going to help them, right? But they just wanted to have a cup of coffee, you know, it's just like relaxed. So this went on for 4 years. That's real. This is a true story. 4 years, yes, 4 years. So there was this one blind spot that this person had. And I thought, well, if they saw that, how helpful would that be, right? Now, I didn't give them the books or anything.
Oh,
That's smart. That's smart. But I would put it close to like the bathroom. The bathroom's a great place. Just leave it there. Read it. Outdoor use. Right there. And then I even started instructing this person on how to talk, so I could listen better. And they're like, really? Now you're even going to tell me how to talk? all under my misunderstanding of, well, if they only saw this part, their life would be a lot better. So then one day, year 4, we're still having this conversation, and it dawned on me, I'm like, I need to listen more. There's something you're trying to tell me that I haven't heard. I need to hear you. So the person said what the person said, and they just wanted to say that. They wanted no fixing. And I realized, I just got a little confused, and I started listening to this beautiful human being as if I needed to teach him something about how they function so they could not suffer. And they just wanted to say something. So now, from the very beginning I saw that this person had just some sort of insecure thought. And what they finally shared with me is that it was an insecure thought. But it's almost like me saying, well, this is just an insecure thought. It felt off. It felt off. Maybe it would have felt okay in another moment, but in this particular moment, the person just wanted to have the freedom to be, right? Just to be. So I catch myself doing that sometimes, It's like, oh, if the person only knew this, then their life would be so much better. But that implies that in this moment, I'm seeing a little fixing that needs to be done. Can we just fix you a little? And I don't like that. I don't like when people do that to me, right? So why would it feel okay for other people? And then I remember that, we're doing the very best that we can given the situation. I just really thought that was helpful. I see that I got a little confused, but I was doing the very best that I could at that moment, just like that other person was doing the very best that they could.
Maybe we should end with a rousing chorus of "Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be," or not. It's time for me to go. Thank you so much, because we offered you a participatory event and then we talked a lot. Is that right, Don? It's 12. Well, everyone else has finished, so I'm assuming it's 12. Oh, we're done.
Oh, we're done.
We're done.